Coming to you live from the incorporeal plane between life and death, it's this week's Apocalypse. I'm your co-host, Kevin Lenihan. With me, as always, is John Ferris. John, oh no! What has happened?
Oh, we've had better days.
We have indeed. I don't want to get into specifics because I want to spur the people at home or on the bus or whatever. But we are not gone before. Is that the term? Inhumed.
Yeah,
we are
having perhaps you could say having a near-death experience.
Indeed, as in being proximal to death.
As being in the same vicinity as him.
Yes, so we have died, I guess you might say, or have we? I'm not sure, but it seems like, well, we are here in what can only be described as death's domain, I suppose, is what would be traditionally known as. Our souls were reaped, but we seem to have made a pit stop along the way. I think maybe he stopped off to pick up his packed lunch or something. I don't know, but he seems to have wandered off. He's writing in a big book now, and he seems to have forgotten about us. The man himself, or the non-gendered individual himself in a big black
personification.
The anthropomorphic personification of death. Yes. Himself, herself, whatever. I know there's a sort of history of this in literature and whatnot, of people challenging death, speaking with death, talking to death, trying to get around death as a real figure. But I'm pretty goddamn clueless when it comes to that. If outside of reading Discworld books, I got nothing. And I don't know if this is I don't think this is going to be the same guy, as it were. But who knows? However, it seems like Death's got a DVD player, which is handy for us, and a whole bunch. He seems to exclusively have movies about death.
Wow,
he's
a bit egotistical, really, isn't it?
Yeah, he seems to be, doesn't he? Yeah. So he's got a bunch of movies here, which might be handy for us to learn about him. Maybe in a challenging to game, or tricking him, or just running away from him might be a good idea. I don't know. I feel like he's the kind of guy that can get in anywhere. But
I kind of imagine, you know what? I kind of think he's maybe put this here for a reason. Surely he wouldn't have time to watch these. Maybe this is maybe he likes a wee challenge now and then.
Yeah, I don't know. But we'll have a wee look here and hopefully use these for their intended purpose then. So he seems to have the entire Final Destination series on VHS and DVD and the Blu-ray box set. Wow, this guy's a weirdo. So we got the first one here, directed by James Wong from 2003. And maybe we'll have time to squeeze in the second one. I don't know. Directed by David Ellis. So you got a wee look at that.
Okay.
And then we've got a classic here, Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal from 1957.
Kind of strange seeing it on the same shelf as Final Destination.
It's right next to it, which is really odd. Maybe this is his order of preference of how much he likes them. I don't know. And then we have, now I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce this director's second name, so I'm just going to go with Harold S. Bucquet.
Bucquet.
I mean, it seems to be spelt sort of like bouquet, but not quite. Bucquet. I'm going to say Bucket. I'm sorry, Harold. So Harold S. Buckets on Borrowed Time from 19...
I'm pretty sure Harold S. Bucket has maybe
travelled
the same path a long time before us, so I don't think he'll mind.
That's On Borrowed Time from 1939. Okay, let's sit down. I'm sure we have... I think we exist outside of time and space here, so I think we got plenty of time to sit down and get through all of these. Alright, here we go. Alright, John. Well, he's still scribbling away in his big book with his fancy quill. And his, of course, black feather quill. Because you gotta stay on brand when you're death, I guess. So, John, what did you think of James Wong's Final Destination?
One or two?
Let's start off with the first one because it's
Well,
the origin one.
Well, the reason I say this is they're basically the same movie.
They are one long sketch comedy. All
these movies are the same. I mean, I vaguely remember the ones after two. But
because sorry, I made a mistake there with the year. So I've written the year for Final. I've done exactly what you're saying. I've written the year, the director and the Final Destination, James Wong, Final Destination. I've written 2003. That's in fact the year of the second one. This one came out in 2000. That's how confused I was when I was writing about them, when I was making my notes.
I mean, they're fun, kind of schlocky, you know. They're just kind of silly movies that you put on.
It's like, I was thinking about when I was watching it. Now, this is the kind of film that traditionally, I guess, if you were, say, going to your local video library back when those existed, yeah. I'm pretty sure I think there's something about, like, I was going to say, I think there's one Blockbuster left in some
they've
weird
also
place.
went the same way as Harold Bucquet.
Indeed, they kicked the proverbial Blockbuster. the proverbial Bucquet, yes. So, like, this is the kind of film that it would traditionally, I assume, be in the sort of the horror section.
Yeah.
In your sort of video library / anywhere you would buy even as well, or even if you were to search for it if it was to show up under a genre in one of the streaming apps, it would probably be in the horror section. Now, personally, I think of these movies as sort of extremely brutal, graphic, slapstick comedies in which people die, because every single one of these, it does feel like it's being played for laughs at times.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you get to the second one. The second one almost feels like a satire of the first one.
Yeah.
So points
and therefore instantly better.
Yes, absolutely. Also, I'm just going to start talking about the second one here because it's the one I really, really, really like. The first one's actually alright. It has a few great dumb moments in it.
It's a funny, good kind of idea. It was actually originally meant to be an episode of the X-Files.
Of course.
But yeah, of course it was. And
yeah.
I don't know what kind of transpired that it ended up being a movie. But yeah, I mean, there's very little to really talk about in the first one, in much a sense that the second one doesn't improve on.
Yeah, like the first one establishes the formula of a big disaster happens, but before it, somebody sees a vision of it.
Yeah.
And then avoids being part of it and dying, and maybe has a few people that end up also not dying. And then throughout the rest of the film, from like, in the first one, it's like a full month later it starts to happen.
Yeah.
The people start to die in the order they were supposed to die during the actual event. Mm-hmm. Like, Death is going back and catching up on his work, sort of.
And for anyone who would argue that this does not feature a personification of death,
no.
It very much does. He may not appear physically, but he has a character, most definitely. He is very pedantic, for a start. He's a wee bit of a prankster as well.
Absolutely, he's got a sense of humor. Also, I'd say there is a sort of a physical presence at one point in the first one. Some people do see, our main guy does see, like, in the mirror behind him. Sometimes people see in the mirror, like, a sort of a wavy, bad CG mist that happens. And I feel like that is supposed to be Death.
Yeah.
Going by. They abandon that by the time we get to the second one. That's not really happening.
Like,
but
kind of a foggy fart.
Indeed, yes, but they do talk about Death as an entity, a conscious entity, and when you see the things happen, like, I gotta say, like, my favorite scene in the first one is the teacher that is supposed to die on the plane and doesn't. Her death scene is so funny. Like, I'm so torn because I don't know. It feels like it is supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
Because it's so daft and there's so many things happening everywhere in her house. Like, she's accidentally, like, she really conspicuously, like, throws a cloth over the top of the knife block with hanging precariously off it as if it's going to knock it over. And the stuff with, like, the things, she puts like something in the microwave that shouldn't be in the microwave by accident, and then also there's like a gas leak, and then also there's all these things happening. So
it's kind of like Naked Gun, that bit with Norbert, is it?
Yeah, it's Nordberg. Nordberg just it's like the stuff that happens to Nordberg in Naked Gun, except it's all happening to this woman, and she's actually going to die from it.
Yeah.
But like, because like she ends up, by the time you get to the end of that scene, she has a big lump of glass stuck in her neck. She has slipped around in her blood. She slipped in her own blood and smashed into the floor and like broken her leg. And then she like her whole kitchen is also on fire at this point. She's crawling around, bleeding everywhere, and the kitchen is on fire and she can't walk. And then she tries to like get the cloth that she threw over the knife block. She reaches up to grab it and pulls the knives down on herself, and all the knives fall into her. And then fucking Billy,
we're not done yet.
And then Billy fucking Dickhead, who's supposed to be our hero, who's come to like try and rescue her or whatever, comes into the house and makes everything 10 times worse. And then sort of knocks into something, and that knocks over a chair, and then the chair hammers the knife into her chest. And then he runs out of the house, and the whole house explodes.
Yeah, it's one of the better, like the first one. That's definitely the peak of the, because as you say, the whole kind of draw of these movies is the spectacle and ridiculousness of the death. It's like those what do you call those contraptions?
Oh gosh, I was trying to remember this a few minutes ago. There's a name for it. They did a whole episode of Mythbusters about them. It's two people's names.
Yeah, I'm gonna kick myself because it'll maybe appear later, but it's like one of those. Only it leads to someone's death. It's like
it's like the start of a friggin' like Honey I Shrunk the Kids. They all at the start of that, or like. Even I think of Back to the Future, there's a thing that Doc Brown has built that's happening in his house, where it's like stuff rolling in to knock over other things, to activate machines, to turn this and turn that. Yeah, these films are just like that. In fact, my favorite scene in the second movie is exactly one of those, but it's like a fake out one. It's like the kid and the dentist, and you have all these different things going on at the dentist's, like. You have the fish gets stuck in the aquarium, and then that overloads the friggin' the filter, which then sparks off, and then it starts leaking onto the plug, and there's water on the floor that the dentist might slip in, but then there's also electricity, but then there's also like the valve falls off the nitrous, and there's all this other stuff, and like he's nearly chokes on like a fake fish and all this, and then you're like, oh my god, so many things are happening, and then the thing that actually kills the kid has nothing to do with any of that.
Yeah, that's
comes out of nowhere.
That's the kid who looks like some kind of Hollywood experimentation in mixing the genes of Corey Feldman and Corey Haim. It's weird.
He does. He looks like he's got Corey Feldman's hair and chin, and everything else from Corey Haim. Yeah.
It's very strange. But it's like, and again, that's part of the fun, is like trying to work out the like how what's Death up to now? What's he doing? What's he doing? He's loosened that knot, and now water's pouring out.
It's like you could almost picture him there, like hunched over, working his fingers at these things, like laughing to himself and like looking over his shoulder at the person who's going to die, like
Rube Goldberg. That's the machines.
I knew it was two names. A Rube Goldberg machine is what you call that.
I don't know where that came from, but it
came out of the sky like a bolt of lightning, John.
That was inspiration. I had to yell it out. Yeah. Yes, like Death loves his wee Rube Goldberg machines. And what I don't understand is in the first one, it must have been like an idea that they had, which they kind of, in the second one they don't so much do, but Death tries to like cover his tracks.
Yeah, it's like, I need to make this really look like an accident.
Yeah.
And like unexplained, because there's a bit where it sucks the water back up in the first one that somebody slipped in. Which why
would he care? Why would he do?
Because he doesn't want to get caught, John. I don't know, he doesn't want to get arrested and sent to prison. I don't know. But the entire premise of these movies is ludicrous. And they really lean into it, and it's no surprise. Like, the second one really goes off the rails in the best way. Mm-hmm. I think that's mainly due to the fact that the director of the second one, David R. Ellis, was a stuntman.
Yeah.
Much like when you look at something like, say, John Wick, and you look at how well the action scenes are executed in that. that's a movie produced, directed, and made from the ground up by stuntmen. Just like I think this movie is. Because it's just like, what's the most elaborate, crazy thing? Because Final Destination 2 just is wild. In fact, one of the best parts of Final Destination 2 is the beginning.
Yeah.
There's this... Because in the first one, they have like the plane crash. Or the plane doesn't even crash, it explodes in the air. Mm-hmm. And you get sort of, and everything's happening, disaster. Here's this person dies, oh, fire, and someone gets blasted out of the plane, and someone gets like impaled on this and that and the other, and you're like, it's kind of a fun, it is kind of a fun scene. It's not really sick for me to say that, but it is kind of fun when it's happening. In the second one, they take that and they blow that up to a huge degree, where it's like, here's all of these dangerous things on this highway. Yeah. And it's like there's a big truck full of logs, and there's like there's so many trucks just full of dangerous things like explosives and fuel and all this stuff, and like things are exploding everywhere. People are getting scared, and people are flying through windshields, and there's even like a really uncomfortable scene where a guy is like trapped by his seatbelt and his car is burning, and you watch him burn to death. And the cop basically gets his whole, as far as you can tell, his whole entire upper body smashed off with a flying log that goes through his car. It's just like, it's just one thing after another, and it's insane. And like,
there is one point where like it's like do you ever see that Val Kilmer movie Top Secret?
Yeah.
Where they've got like the two cars like slowly touch, and they both explode.
Yeah.
There is a lot of that happening on the highway as well.
Yeah, for some reason there's a car that goes under a truck, and the truck, like, it's basically hits the roof of the car.
Yep.
And then the car and the truck just both explode. It's like Bad Boys 2, you know. There's explosions happening for no reason, but because everything else that's going on is so madcap and insane, it doesn't matter. It's all just part of the fun. Yeah. You're like, well, of course this is exploding, because why wouldn't it? Of course this motorbike, that's what motorbikes are, just filled with nitroglycerin, of course.
Yeah.
So as soon as they touch anything,
everyone knows that.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you really just get blown to bits if you ever touch anything when you're on a motorbike. Yeah, so these movies are great. The third one's really good as well. I like the third one quite a lot.
That's the roller coaster one?
That's the roller coaster. That's how you identify these movies. You identify them by the accident that happens at the start. So that's there's the plane one's the first one, the motorway accident's the second one, roller coaster's the third one, the fourth one is a NASCAR track.
The fourth one is also annoyingly called Final Destination.
The Final Destination.
These there.
Yeah, no, they love to do that. I don't know why they bothered. That was the 3D one as well, so like it's really uninventive.
Yeah.
Because I think they were just leaning really heavily on, we'll just throw stuff at the screen to distract people, and that'll make it good.
So like every 3D film ever made?
Yes, every 3D film ever made, except Avatar, which was just boring on its own without that. But anyway, they're all great films. So I have a deep appreciation for these movies. They do sort of tail off. Like the fourth one's not great. The fifth one I remember being pretty entertained by. It was felt like these are getting better again. But then I think they just stopped.
It's the kind of thing I think would benefit more, and I don't think I would say this about any other film franchise, but it would benefit from just a reboot, because are they still by the fifth one going through, like, you know, is the first one what's dictating all this? Because the second one's kind of the people who survived.
Yeah.
Because they've basically changed history, people have survived other accidents that should have died because of what happened in the first one. So then those people, deaths after them people. And for some reason, he's decided to take them in reverse order now.
Yeah, everyone in the second one had a near-death experience already.
Yeah.
And then, I guess, the accident... I guess that seems to mean that the accident on the motorway was Death's way of getting it all done at once.
Yeah.
And then somebody screwed that up on him too. So now he's going backwards in an attempt to try it differently, maybe?
So this means, like, on some, like, different level, there is some kind of cosmic entity who likes really fucking with death and just being like, I'm going to give her visions.
Oh, yeah,
just to really fuck his day up.
Yeah, because they never explain where the visions come from or why people have the visions.
No.
They just decide, oh, these people have them. Like in the first one, it's the main guy, and then our heroine, I guess, Claire Rivers, which we were talking about this a wee bit earlier. About like through most of the film, you're like, can nobody say Claire properly? And then it turns out, no, her name's actually Claire.
Yeah.
I guess her name's a joke.
We even had
By the
subtitles
writers?
on. My wife was saying, "Oh, is her name Claire?" I went, "No, the subtitles are wrong."
Yeah, no,
Idiot.
her name is Claire Rivers because of course it is.
Which sounds like a retirement home or something.
It does, doesn't it? It's,
Come on,
again,
Granny, you're going up to Claire Rivers.
Oh my. Yeah, well, that I think lends itself to the guys even writing it were probably having a joke
Yeah.
about it because they named one of the main characters Claire Rivers for some reason.
Apparently, a lot of the names, I think the last names are old horror directors. I heard that Kimberly, who's the protagonist in the second one, her last name's Corman.
Oh, like Roger Corman?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a few. I don't. A lot of the early ones are kind of very, very old, kind of, like black and white era type horror directors. But there's, I mean,
there's a guy called Agent Shrek, which I assume is a reference to Max Shrek.
Yes, yeah.
From Nosferatu. Now, I thought for a minute, I did Google this, it was whenever they called him Shrek, I was like, is that a reference to the annoying Scottish ogre Shrek? And then I looked it up, and like the movie Shrek came out like the year after this.
That would have been hilarious.
But then I was like, but it was a book before that. It was a kid's book before that.
Yeah.
So maybe I mean,
one of the most
know.
obvious ones in the first one is Sean William Scott's character is called Billy Hitchcock.
Yeah,
that's
really on the nose.
Yeah,
that's
one's
like,
more on the nose.
I think that's in there to let you know. Here, we've named all these people after horror directors.
Yeah,
so
because you're not going to know the rest of them.
Yeah. And they never really explain. Tony Todd, again, a horror staple. The Candyman himself shows up in this too, and they never really explain anything. He's in both of these films at certain points. And I guess they just try to imply that because he's a mortician, he just knows stuff about death.
Yeah, he's the one that tells him in the second one that basically get knocked up and it stops death coming after you or some crap like that.
It get knocked up and it stops. It says something about like the new life.
He might have worded it differently.
Yeah, he doesn't say get knocked up and death will come. It sounds like he's just that's just weird. Yeah, no, I can't even imagine Tony Todd saying that. But yeah, that's their like crazy theory that like if this person who supposedly was gonna die in the crash survives and has her baby, that will somehow short circuit the whole thing. It's a real like stupid MacGuffin for like just here we need some kind of thing for these characters to aim for so they have a goal as opposed to just not dying.
just waiting for death to come.
Because in the first one, all they're doing is waiting for death to try and have a go at them so that they can avoid it when it happens. Whereas in this one, it's like, oh no, we have an actual solution. But it doesn't actually really matter. It's just an excuse to have them run about the place and endanger themselves and then get killed by accidents like elevators.
Oh. Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish they would make more of these.
Yeah.
I wish they would get like some more stunt performers who want to be directors to make some Final Destination movies, because Final Destination 2 is so good and so crap all at the same time, and it's just brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should say that don't go into this movie expecting anything more than a schlocky, as we said, just inventive ways of people being kind of strangled or dismembered or crushed or burnt or whatever, stabbed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a slapstick comedy. That's what it is. Through and through, from start to finish. It's a slapstick comedy, but if in the slapstick comedy there were real world consequences when people fell over, that's what these movies are. Okay, well, there's two little sort of hourglasses now on the desk here. Yeah, I know. One of them, I can't really read the labels, it's sort of gnarled gothic script, but I'm pretty sure at least one of them says John on it. Yeah. So I'm probably alright. I don't know what the other one says, it's illegible. It's probably not mine, though. No. But they've each got one grain of sand sitting just in the little sort of in-betweeny bit between the bulbs. Mm-hmm. Which, and it's, I think if you look really close, you know how sometimes if you look really close at like the minute hand on a clock, you can kind of see it move if you really concentrate.
Yeah,
they're kind of doing that. It's kind of like if you really look, you can kind of see them slowly moving down. So I'm feeling a sense of urgency for you, John. I'm probably fine.
yeah, denial's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I'm probably fine. This guy's just started reading now. I think he's actually legitimately forgotten we're here. But before he remembers we're here, we should have a wee chat about the seventh seal, I think, and see if there's anything we can glean from that for whenever he suddenly turns around and says, "Here, mate, it's you. Come here. Yeah, I deal with you." So, John, what did you think about Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal?
Well, this is definitely a lot more serious than the previous two movies.
What, than Final Destination?
Yeah.
A lot of people die in Final Destination. Well, that's pretty serious stuff, John.
Well, yeah, true. Yeah, maybe this is just, this is basically a popcorn movie compared to Final Destination, isn't it?
It's like a prequel.
Yeah, oh God.
In some ways.
I mean, there's very little new we will say about Seventh Seal that hasn't already been said, but I do think this is great. I mean, it's always counted as, it's been counted as one of the greatest movies ever made for years, and for good reason. Even the subject matter, he's based a movie on wood carvings. That's where he got his influence. That's kind of cool. But this is definitely kind of spoilers. The best shot movie out of the three. There's scenes in this. There's one in particular that I love where Max von Sydow's character goes to the confessional, and he thinks he's talking to the priest, and then he has this big outburst because his whole thing is that he's just back from war and the Black Plague has swept through his homeland, and he's getting annoyed at the silence of God and all this, and he has this big angry soliloquy, and there's a wonderful shot where death is in the forefront. Then you've got the window of the confessional, which is kind of like, a prison almost looking.
Yeah, he's got like the way Max von Sydow's face is, the way the shadows are falling across his face.
Yeah.
From the grill, it looks like bars in a prison cell or something. Yeah,
and his outburst as well, like on top of that, it's so futile, and it's just wonderful. There's shots in this, and there's scenes in this that are just absolutely fantastic, and there's so much depth to this movie, which again is why it is so well regarded and so lauded over, because I mean, each time you watch this, you're going to get something extra out of it, or you might get a different thing, and plus, I mean, it's inspired that many things. It has inspired my personal like kind of favoured depiction of death, which is Discworld. It was very influential on Terry Pratchett and his kind of depiction of death, which is amazing. Like in the first lot of books a lot more so, and then Terry Pratchett's kind of his depiction of death takes on like a much more of a life of its own, so to speak.
Yeah, it becomes a way more nuanced, interesting, real character as opposed to just a caricature or a satire.
Yeah, but it definitely started off like that. Yeah, because there's a part in this where Death is, I forget the character's name who's in the tree, but Death starts cutting the tree down,
Oh yeah,
And
that goon. Is it Johns? No, Johns is his buddy.
yeah, Jones is the
Um,
squire.
it's
This is
the
the
guy that
actor
leaves.
guy.
His name's Scat or Slat or
Yeah.
something like that. That like runs off with a girl in the middle of a play.
Yeah.
In the middle of a bloody play that he's supposed to come on and be like part of.
Yeah.
And he just runs off to have sex in the woods with some other guy's wife, and then never comes back to the party until
Yeah.
like later he wanders into them, and there's a whole thing. But yeah, Death is way more like, I guess, well, it feels weird. I'm now about to make a direct comparison from Final Destination to The Seventh Seal, but like sometimes in fiction and in fact in Discworld and all that, Death doesn't kill people. Like he says that, he's like, I don't kill people. People kill people, or
Yeah.
accidents kill
And
people.
in fact, there's a quote that I remember. Despite rumor, Death isn't cruel, merely terribly, terribly good at his job.
Yeah. Whereas in this, it's like he's literally at the bottom of the tree with a goddamn handsaw while the guy's in it. I mean, he's straight up murdering this guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's doing it. Now, whether or not it's a metaphor for, like, an accident happening, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is.
But he is totally, like, I mean, he can see death. The fact is, like, people can see death. Some people can. People who are going to die soon, I think, can see death. Like, Max von Sydow can see death. And the guy, Scat, who's up in the tree, can see him because he's talking to him and he's asking him what the hell he's doing when he's down there cutting the tree down. So there's a few people who can see and converse with death. But then it does also get established at one point that not everyone can see him. Like, there's a part where he's with the acting troupe and everyone's asleep, and one of them wakes up, Mia, I think, wakes up, and he's sitting there playing chess with Death and talking to him.
Yeah.
And then she says to her husband, he's just sitting there talking to himself, playing chess with himself. That was weird. So as if like she couldn't see Death, but some people can and some people can't whenever it's like it's necessary for the plot, I suppose.
And although her husband can see Death, there's a strange thing with him where he seems to be, but because he's kind of a representation of the true artist, and he's the only one who, I think this is very important, he's the only one who sees evidence of God. And I mean, this is coming from me, an atheist, but he is the only one in the movie. Everyone else is kind of looking for God, like particularly Max von Sydow's character, Antonius Block. His mission is to find reason for life or find God, and the only person who does is this comedian, acrobat, actor
goofball.
dude. Yeah.
He's a goofball.
And
That's
he
like
sees
his
it
whole
way
thing.
near the start, and it's almost shrugged off. It's like he gets a wee bit excited, but
Aye.
it never comes up again.
Yeah, I think his wife is like, he has like a history of this.
Yeah.
He has a history of seeing things that, as far as other people are concerned, aren't there.
Yeah.
But I guess it's implied that maybe he's just like got the seer's eye or something, that like he can see these things. A lot like Alex in Final Destination when he has the the vision of the plane crash. I'd say there's a lot these characters have in common, in that they're both annoying goofballs. I don't know. Although I do actually like the character quite a bit. I think he's all right. He's likable. He's sort of got this sort of, Joff has this sort of like amiable sort of quality about him, where he's always got a big dumb smile on his face.
Yeah.
Even when things are going really badly wrong, or like there's a point towards the end where they're caught in a storm and there's lightning and they're like, oh no, we're gonna die, and he's still kind of got a big grin. Yeah. And he's like, oh, it's gonna be all right. He's still like weirdly thinking positively, and like, and he's been through a lot. Like, I mean, there's a point where like this blacksmith's gonna like stove his head in.
Yeah.
Earlier on in the film, and this other crazy guy wants to stab him for like no good reason except that he's like an actor, and they've decided they don't like actors now because of their mate who ran off with the guy's wife. But he's like this weird force of positivity throughout the whole movie that like
much needed as well.
Yeah, absolutely, because it is a grim sort of, it's shot deliberately barren as well. You see like a lot of the wide shots and stuff whenever they're out in the countryside. It's very barren terrain a lot of the time when they're not in the woods. It's kind of miserable and bleak. But with him in the middle of it all, it's actually kind of like, okay, no, there is still some positivity here.
Yeah.
And it's, It is a gorgeous film. And I love Death in this. I think he's brilliant. I don't know how to say the actor's name properly,
Bengt?
but I think it's Bengt. Is it Bengt?
Bengt
Eckroth. Yeah. He's great because he's like he has a sense of humor about him.
Yeah.
But he is also really I don't know, stony faced.
Yeah.
But he says things like that bit you were talking about earlier in the confessional, where he's sort of pretending to be a monk taking his confession, but he's really just there to like get him to spill
cheat.
his chest.
He's there to cheat.
Yeah, he's there to cheat because he's like, he's supposed to be playing chess with this guy for his life, and they're sort of having a really intermittent game of chess.
Yeah,
it's taking place over a couple of days where they'll just get together every night and do a few moves.
But this is the knight's whole plan, though. That's
Yeah.
He's playing this game of chess to. He wants more time. He wants to. He wants to find the answers to these questions that he has. To know that he's become disillusioned with religion, and like again, there's a lot of heavy religious imagery in this, and it doesn't matter what
that Jesus on the cross that keeps coming up. The face on that thing is miserable. Oh my god, it's horrible.
But that's the thing, like, you can come at it from all these different angles, and if you are very religious, the Catholic Church, I think, praise this movie as well. So they come, I think because at the end, the knight kind of does.
He sort of finds his faith.
Well,
I guess.
I read it a different way, but they
it's
probably read it like, he's found God now,
But like as we've said before, like really good art is like completely open to interpretation a lot of the time, and it's entirely like completely subjective.
Yeah.
So you can look at it. I mean, the way I look at it, it's like it's about a guy who's like, he doesn't ever. I think he doesn't ever really think he's going to win the chess game.
No.
It's like you're saying, he's just stalling for time until he can find something in the greater world to confirm whether or not God is real and whether or not these last however many years he's been away fighting in the Crusades has been actually worth something. Because he's come back and all the people, like specifically one guy who's his buddy Johns comes across. His buddy Johns doesn't seem to believe in anything at all, but also doesn't seem... He's completely not torn up about it.
No.
Like Antonius is. He is just like, whatever. And he's singing bawdy songs, and he's like... He's just going about the place getting stuff done.
Yeah.
And... being a little bit weird sometimes. A bit dodgy.
Yeah,
there's a point where he's like, "Here, I could have raped you." He says to somebody at one point.
Yeah,
like,
what
Jesus
the
Christ,
fuck was that about?
Like, oh, you should be grateful because I didn't.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? But
women aren't really treated the best in this movie.
No, not at all. But yeah, he's got this sort of like mirror opposite almost of Antonius, where like he doesn't have faith, and it seems like he maybe never did.
No.
He's maybe a guy who was never a believer, but just went along with his friend to war because his mate was going, and he was like, I'll go with you and I'll hang about with you, and you need me. So that's his whole thing. And they're coming back, and he's like, well, we just got to get home now and get this all sorted out. So he's like this nice contrast to him, because he's not asking questions. He's very much into the material world of what's going on around him and finding solutions there, whereas Antonius is like, but where am I going to go when I die? And what's going to happen? And he keeps asking and no one will answer him, and Death is really like so cryptic every time he answers. He's like, I'll take you with me, and he's like, yeah, but where? And he's like, can't tell you that.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I don't know.
Yeah, he actually does say he doesn't know.
Seem to know.
That's not his job. And I mean, the scenes and the scenes with Antonius Block and Death just playing chess are probably the best scenes in it. And it happens only maybe 3 or 4 times, but they're so good, and it's so worth going through the movie. Those scenes really stand out, and there's always something where you're with Antonius, you're wanting these answers. Of course you want these answers. We're all in the same boat here. We're all in our own way playing a game of chess with Death.
some of us more literally than others. But yeah, those scenes, there's a reason those scenes are like the iconic thing that you think of whenever somebody mentions the Seventh Seal. And there's a reason this way. Whenever somebody is satirizing this film, it's always that. It's always death playing games. I mean, the first thing that always springs to mind, and this is so stupid, that every time I think of this movie, the first thing that always springs to mind for me is Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. 100%. Just like, you may challenge me to a game, you know, and like that scene in Bill and Ted is brilliant because it's like, okay, so with Antonius Block, who is an intelligent, thoughtful, educated man, his game is chess. With Bill and Ted, it's Twister and Boggle,
Connect
Four, and Battleship. You know, and they're really good at them because they're dumb games for idiots, and that's why they win against death. And I guess in a lot of ways, that's like Bill and Ted sort of explores the alternate of this movie of what if they actually were trying to win. Because again, Antonius isn't trying to win because he doesn't think he can win.
No,
he's just trying to make the game go on as long as possible so that he can get some kind of, I guess, what you might call today closure before the end comes. But of course, you know, well, actually, I don't know if I want to do spoilers for the Seventh Seal, whether or not he finds answers, really. But
I don't think it's one of those it's one of those ones of like, it's the journey that matters, because you know, at the end of this, kind of near enough everyone does die, but you almost know that it's going to happen. I mean, as we've said many times here, his goal is not to beat death, so you know his outcome. You know that he isn't going to. But I actually just remembered there. I wish I'd remembered it earlier. Is you know, when you were talking there about when he's asking Death all these questions and him saying he knows nothing. Death actually he responds to that question by saying, "I am unknowing," which I think is one of the best. Like, because we kind of skirted around that, but those words are so important as well. I am unknowing, and rather than just I don't know.
Yeah.
But
it's almost like I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I can't know anything. I am a force.
Yes, exactly.
I am just this thing that exists to end life.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much depth in this. I mean, you've got that whole scene with the church painter and John's as well. Yeah. You've got, you know, you could pick apart scenes of this for days, and people have written books. People have written their like end of year like theses at university and film school on this film. Like hundreds of thousands of students, I'm sure, have written millions and millions and millions of words about every single possible aspect of this film that we would just be retreading. Definitely, to the point that like whoever they're submitting it to just roll their eyes and go, "Oh fuck, great, another Seventh Seal." Yeah, but I bet none of them have taken into consideration the parallels between this film and Final Destination 1 and 2. I doubt it. Very much.
Or actually, you know what? Some film student somewhere thinking he was really clever probably did and then got a D and was raging.
D's still a pass.
D is still a pass. You're right, John. You're right. Thank Christ it is too. Oh my. Yeah, so that and like, so it's a beautiful film. It's technically, it's marvelous. Yeah. Especially like 1957. You know, you look at other films from that era, and you know, and then you look at this film, and you can tell the difference. Yeah. Immediately with the way it's shot, and like especially those scenes you're talking. Whenever they're playing chess, that first scene on the beach. Yeah. Is so striking.
Everything's so deliberate. There's even the very first time Antonius Block is shouting at the ocean, basically, and
as you do,
as you do. I've done it. We've all done it. You know, and again, just saying, was this all worth it? Was like all these, all the death that has surrounded him. It is basically his whole life, I assume, because he's a knight. Is it all worth it? Why is God so silent? And then the camera kind of, as he walks towards the camera kind of leaves him and rests on this chessboard. And I mean, even a shot like that, there's people who say that that's like the ushering in of these new ideas, like, you know, kind of out with these outdated old sensibilities of religion, and then kind of the chessboard representing like modern ideas and stuff like that. And you know, you could overanalyze this movie to the point that it becomes tedious. So
it becomes a meaningless sort of blur of metaphor. Yeah. But I think, again, depending on what kind of mood you're in, you can enjoy this on a just sort of a superficial level, in that it does look so striking.
Yeah.
You can look at it and say, this film is beautiful, and I love how it looks. And you can see like the basic story and be like, you know what, I can follow this, I can appreciate it, it raises some interesting questions.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to get over analytical. It's very tempting to do so. And for people who want to do that, it is ripe for it.
Oh yeah.
You could sit there again for days and days and days and talk about all the different aspects of this film. But ultimately, I'm just going to say that it's really, really good.
Yeah.
And it looks great. The dialogue is brilliant. I'm assuming, like, you know, I've only obviously read the subtitles, as it were.
Yeah.
Whether in the original Svensk, it's like maybe more striking in some way. I don't know. But you know, as someone who only speaks English,
and I mean, you can still tell. I think, you know, I haven't watched a lot. We've both watched a lot of movies with subtitles, and I think there are times where you're like, yeah, they acted. I think it's more difficult to tell if the acting, if you think it was bad and it maybe wasn't. I think it's more difficult that way. But I mean, everyone is so well cast in this, and that their character comes through in how they're saying it. You may not understand the words, but you understand the emotion. You understand the direction behind it.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially the two main characters are perfectly classed. Like, this cemented Max von Sydow for years. For, you know, he played these characters. He played these kind of stoic, serious men.
Yeah, very thoughtful, sort of elder statesman kind of people.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, and to the point where he was being cast, and again, we talked about this earlier before we started recording, about how he is a man who throughout his entire career has always been cast old.
Yeah.
Because he has a face, his face just looks old.
Yeah.
You know, even when he was young, I mean, like again, in The Exorcist, he's playing like an 80-year-old priest, and he was like in his mid to late 30s or something like that, you know. He's always done that. Like in Dreamscape as well, he plays like a guy who's supposed to be very, very old. I know, just to call back to something. I feel like we should call back to something we've touched on before. He is in Dreamscape, and he was very good in Dreamscape.
Yeah.
It's weird to also, here we are comparing The Seventh Seal to Final Destination and Dreamscape. But it's a better film than both of those, I think, on a technical level. Anyway, not to get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's beautiful. It's a classic for a reason.
Yeah.
I think it's a classic for a very good reason. Alright, well, Death himself has kicked his feet up on a footstool there, and he's sitting right. I don't know what's up with this guy, but he's just stuck the TV on and he's just watching game shows and eating popcorn. Well, he's lifting them up to his sort of shrouded sort of hood, and the popcorn is disappearing.
Yeah.
And he's just I can't imagine he's just filling his robe with popcorn. But while he's certainly still distracted, let's talk about Harold S. possibly Bucquet, possibly Bucquet, possibly Bucquet, who knows. His film from 1939, On Borrowed Time. John, what did you think about On Borrowed Time?
I was very, very surprised. I have not heard about this movie before we watched it there.
That is wild. Like, I find it, now that I've seen it,
yeah,
I am very confused about how I never saw it before. Because after I watched it, I did go and be like, what do people think about this movie?
Yeah.
And it seems like it's actually really, really highly regarded.
Yeah.
People really like it.
And
it's
rightfully so.
Yeah, like, there's all these retrospective reviews of it of people who really like it. And even at the time, people were talking about how great it was. There's a few things about, like, apparently it was based on a stage play.
Yeah.
I think, and there was some complaints that
the Hays Code.
The Hays Code basically restricted their language.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to see the stage play to see how rough that gets, because I was shocked. I was still shocked by some of the language in this film because it was from 1939.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting it to be so, I guess, I feel like a really old man saying this, but to be so raucous. Because Gramps says some really, like, fun stuff that, like, he has these great phrases. They sound like the kind of phrases that you would hear from, like, maybe our parents or our grandparents, but, like, filtered through, like, America, 1930s, 1920s, maybe America. Like, there's a point where he says something like, a guy, he's asked to come along with our death character,
Mr. Brink.
He says, yeah, Mr. Brink indeed, and he says, I wouldn't go with you to a rat fight. It's like, that's brilliant. That is a great phrase.
It is very good. Yeah, it's like over here. It's like he wouldn't say boo to a goose.
Exactly.
Like, what?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
What does that mean?
Who would?
Who would say boo to a goose? Is that something that is a common thing to do? I would just stay away from geese generally.
Yeah.
That's generally good advice. They're not friendly.
No.
They're horrible things.
But
I believe I saw them once described as honking shit demons. So, you know, that's yeah. I wouldn't say boo to a honking shit demon.
But yeah, I mean, the character of the grandpa, and especially his relationship with Pud, is brilliantly done, and it feels so real, and it's really sweet at times, and it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah,
at times in this movie, there's a really good scene whenever they come to tell the grandparents that Pud's parents were killed. There's a really good scene where, like, Pud is kind of, because of his age, he's kind of like left out of it. They're not telling him just yet, and he runs off and he's playing, and there's something so horribly sad about it. About him still, like, kind of joyfully playing away while you know what they're getting told, and I thought it was very well done.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in this film, I find, where you're like, this is kind of really, really heartbreaking and sad, but there's this weird, constant sort of positive energy running through the entire thing the whole way through. I mean, even, like, from the description, I'll just read the sort of general sort of blurb of the movie. It's not very long, but it's sort of, okay, so it's, a cantankerous old man takes in his beloved orphaned grandson, whom he must protect at all costs, including from an agent of death, with the help of a magical apple tree. So, yeah, the magical apple tree aspect. Now, they actually kind of get away with explaining it really well by just having, they sort of just acknowledge, they have this sort of magical realism thing happening, where they just sort of acknowledge fairly early on in the film that, like, it's almost like a silly thing that the kid is talking about.
Yeah.
And then it just sort of works. And to be honest, like, I was thinking to myself, oh, this is really daft, how the magical apple tree. And then when I saw the way they sort of presented it and explained it, I completely accepted it. I completely accepted that, like, there was this whole thing with the apple tree and the neighbor kid stealing the apples, and, like, he says to the kid about, oh, I wish that someone, if anyone was to be in that apple tree, that they would be stuck in there until they got my permission to come down. And the kids are like, oh, you made a wish, Grandpa, you made a wish. And then they just sort of explain it that, like, he made this wish and it has come true. He doesn't wish on anything, really.
No,
but
what is it? I forget. It's like Pud kind of, there's something that happens that that is the reason that he's making this wish, and he's just like, oh, I'll not wish just yet, but it's kind of like the genie thing, where, like, he kind of does it by accident because
something happens, and he sort of it's like he has a wish in the bank, as it were, and then he accidentally says his wish about the apple tree, and then the kids are like, oh no, you just wished, but he's not taking it seriously. But the kid is taking it extremely seriously. Like, Pud is very, very convinced
Oh, yeah.
That now that his grandpa's wished for this is going to happen, and then it does. The neighbor kid gets stuck in the tree and can't get out, and he's hanging off and he can't let go of it.
Yeah.
Until he gives him permission, and it's just a setup for later.
Yeah.
For to get Death into the apple tree and have him trapped there. But they do it in a really great, like, nice sort of way that I just completely accepted it as like, well, of course. And of course now Death is stuck in the apple tree.
Yeah.
Mr. Brink himself. Yeah, so it's
actually wonderful when he does trap Mr. Brink in the apple tree, and then it just starts starts shaking violently.
Yeah.
And it's really crazy. Like, I really like that. But there's so... I think, again, it's our old thing of, like, the characters are done well.
Yep.
So it works. It instantly works. Like, Mr. Brink is so dapper and so...
He's so proper.
Yeah, and like out of the three of these, this is my kind of out of or 3 or 4 of the movies. This is my kind of favorite depiction of Death, because he's not kind of nasty, he's not mean, he's not vindictive. He's actually quite nice, and he
feels like he's kind. He's there. It almost feels like he's there to do his job, and his job is to help people.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to give any spoilers for this movie, but it shows you him taking someone to the next life at one point in this, and it's him, like, kind of very sweetly talking to the person and, like, saying it's okay, and just being generally, like, quite warm with them. Yeah. Which I did not expect from a movie in 1939 to depict Death in this way, but I'm very, very convinced that Terry Pratchett would have seen this, because a lot of aspects of his Death are very like this. It's not this nasty, like, horrible creature. It's just someone doing a job, and and
someone who does a job and cares about their job.
Yeah.
And how it's done, and he feels like he really cares about people in this weird way.
Yeah,
but he's also kind of like he also sort of takes everything in his stride as well, because he doesn't at any point lose his temper or be angry.
No,
there's the point where the tree, like, freaks out trying to keep him in.
Yeah,
but, like, that's the only real, like, sort of violent reaction that happens. And for the rest of it, he's just sort of hanging out in this tree, talking calmly and being like, you should probably let me down.
Yeah.
Or he's just commenting on other things that people are saying to Gramps. Go, he's right, yeah, this isn't great. And, like, it also, like, brings up this weird sort of implication of the wider world of what's going on there. Like, there's no, like, mass crazy panic or anything, but they imply that nothing is dying, which is kind of the plot of Terry Pratchett's Reaper Man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of what it's about. It's like death is temporarily unavailable, and no one's dying, and that's causing problems. And they do talk about it maybe causing problems at one point. The doctor is talking about all the people who are suffering in the hospital.
Yes,
and like maybe these people who should die but are just going on, and he even says to Gramps at one point, he's like, have you ever met anyone who's over 100 years old?
Yeah. And
Gramps has this wee moment where he thinks back to when he was young, and, like, he's thinking about, like, his uncle or something, his great uncle, about him and how miserable he was.
Yeah.
And then he's like, he keeps going through these little phases where you think, oh, maybe he is gonna let him out, but then he's got this whole, like, I have to keep this kid away from this horrible woman who just wants him because he's now got inheritance because his parents died, and, like, that's a whole, like, I think she's such a dick as well. I hated her.
She's wonderfully, I think she's the actress is wonderful in this, because she is horrendously horrible.
Yeah,
she is, like, you do not want Pod to you're completely on the grandpa's side. You're like, I'll death her until Pod's a wee bit older.
Yeah, it's like, because, like, she's gonna send him to this, like, all girls school and all this stuff, and he's like, you can't do that. That's weird, It's like, okay, yeah, she's got all these weird plans about him, but like he's this scrappy wee, like he's like something from like Tom Sawyer or something, you know. He's this like kid that lives in the muck almost and is always out playing around in the trees and in the woods and stuff, and he's the kind of kid who gets dirty and he's scrappy and he swears, and they don't like that he swears, and like the grandpa swears like a sailor, and like again.
Well, that's the thing. Like, Pud hangs on his grandpa's every word, and he mimics him throughout the movie, and it's really sweet, and it's really again, like we said many times on this podcast that we have a problem with usually like child actors or like the way children are depicted in movies, but Pud feels like an actual real kid. Because he's just like he's constantly like looking at the grandpa. If the grandpa cusses, he goes, "Oh great, I can cuss now."
It's like permission to do it almost. It's like he's always looking to see, oh, grandpa did it, then I'm grand to do it.
And the grandpa's really cheeky as well, and like even you know, because of the time period, they're coming to him like saying that the housekeeper is she, or like she seems like she's just kind of helping
their housekeeper.
They're like going, oh, you can't have her in the house. You know, she was seen kissing a man in the park.
I know.
And he's just like, what?
He's like, so everyone else is appalled, and he's like, there's nothing wrong with that.
And then he says to the housekeeper, oh, were you seen kissing whatever Mr. Lowry in the park? And she's like, she's all embarrassed. And went, there's a perfectly good house up here to do it in.
Come and kiss him up here. It'll be grand.
What's wrong with
you? Because you think like for a moment it's like she thinks she's gonna get fired or something over it, and it's like, nah, it's grand. Yeah, so he's totally cool with stuff. He seems like a nice guy who's like, I don't know. It's like he's still weirdly youthful and spry, but he's in this wheelchair the whole time, you know. And like that's always reminding him of his age. He's got his wheelchair and his stick, but then he's got this kid around, and I think he loves being around the kid because he still feels young, and he likes hanging around with his grandson.
Yeah, they're
they can have fun
like
together.
I think the sweetness of that relationship just it carries the majority of the movie because Mr. Brink death isn't in it much, and in fact I would have liked, but it makes more sense, I suppose. I would have liked more scenes of the conversations between Mr. Brink and Grandpa. You know, I think it would have been good, but I can understand as well why that wouldn't happen because Grandpa really wants to like avoid death at all costs here.
Yeah, he has like a fence built around the tree and everything, like stay away from the tree because he's too busy. He has other things to worry about, i.e. stopping this woman. Well, it's the kid's aunt. They never really explain how she's related to him.
No.
It's not... I guess it's not his daughter.
No.
I guess it's maybe like the... I assume maybe the sister of one of the kid's parents, like the kid's like mother, maybe.
I think it's the mother's side, because I think at one point... he and his wife Nellie do talk about bringing up their son, and you know how we'll just bring Pud up like we brought him up, and the wife Nellie, she's just being very like we were a lot younger back then, it's a lot more difficult to bring a son, but not to mention the grandpa's in a wheelchair now,
Yeah, he seems spry, but he can't walk.
Yeah.
You know, he is incapable of walking. But which I think the actual the actor was disabled as well.
He was, and that's why the near the end he does stand up for a while, but it's very like they don't want him moving too much, so it does like kind of, he starts walking and it looks a bit strange, but
it does. I think they do some fun stuff with like back projection there and effects to make it seem like they're walking through woods and stuff, which I think is quite effective. I mean, I can tell now, I can look at it now and be like, well, that's a back projection, but actually the context of it makes it make sense that it looks a little otherworldly, not to give any spoilers about anything, but it actually looks really cool. I really like the look of that scene because it made it feel otherworldly and idyllic in this strange way. So this film is like, I don't know if it's necessarily like, that it's particularly like amazingly well shot. It's extremely competent, and like it's shot a lot like other films of the time.
Yeah, it's very much coming from that time period where they didn't know really how to treat film, and they were shooting it like it was a play. You know, they weren't focusing so much. It's not like The Seventh Seal where, you know, they're really trying to tell a story with the cinematography and the editing and stuff. This is literally just cut to Mr. Brink when they're having a conversation, cut back to Grandpa, and you know, I mean, what I do love about this time period and these older movies is that people learned their lines, and I actually enjoy the fact that there's not much. That the editing is used very sparingly, and when it's needed, you know, they play it out like a play, and sometimes that's refreshing.
Yeah, you feel like it was put on. They built the set.
Yeah.
And then it was put on the set like a play that they filmed. Yeah. Maybe from a couple of different angles. And then that's it. And that's the whole film.
And I mean, it's very well acted. You know, it's as we said before, that the Grandpa and Pud, like that relationship draws you in almost straight away. You know, you're on board with them. Sets up the characters very well. All the other characters as well, like the grandma, Miss Nellie. She's brilliant.
She's so nice.
Yeah, she's like ridiculously nice, but she's also trying to kind of reel in, you know, the grandpa's bad behaviour, because she knows that they'll not be able to look after Pud if he keeps teaching him to cuss. And there's this whole thing where like they don't want the grandpa looking after him because he's not religious enough, which was enough to get my blood boiling.
Yeah. It's a very like 1930s, 40s, and 50s, I guess, kind of America attitude of, oh, well, you don't go to church, so you're not fit to raise a child. Yeah. Which obviously, like, he obviously doesn't take seriously. And obviously the playwright, the writers, and everyone involved didn't think this, but it's like it almost feels like a weird criticism of people who hold that attitude, this puritanical attitude. Yeah. Because, like, especially, like, the sister, I mean, she's the one who's really plugging that, and she is just horrible. She's
the worst. She is the worst.
She is this caricature of a shitty aunt.
Yeah,
you don't want to see.
She's almost like a kind of Disney villain, and like
she's like the witch from The Wizard of Oz. Yeah, she's like the Wicked Witch of the West. You know, she even looks like her. Yeah. In fact, it's not the same actress, is it?
Like in
my head now, I'm wondering if it is, but I feel like maybe it's not.
She has no redeeming qualities whatsoever.
No, yeah, but yeah, she's very much the witch from The Wizard of Oz. If in like the original form, you know, in the movie when she's just like the woman that lives down the road who's horrible and hits the dog, you know, and all that stuff. It's like that. So she is this sort of almost. She's like. She's the villain, I guess you might say. Death isn't really the villain.
No, because
it's her.
Because as we said, Death actually does seem to care about the. Again, actually, another Terry Pratchett quote which fits in very well with this is when in the Reaper Man, which you mentioned, when Death says, "What can the harvest hope for if not for the care of the Reaper Man?" And that fits very well with how they depict Mr. Brink. You know, as we said, he's very soft spoken. He's very dapper. He doesn't get angry with them for trapping in the tree. He's just trying to explain, like, this is a bad idea. Things need to die. The cycle needs to happen. And when it shows you him doing his job, it's very sweet, and
it's very compassionate.
And I also love that he's got a bit of a sense of humour. Like when you first meet, I think at the very start, he's like one of the first characters you meet, and you see, as much as you don't know that it's Pud's parents, but he looks like he's hitchhiking, and they stop for him, and they say something like, "Oh, we're not going far," and he goes, "Oh, I know."
It's like, I know.
Brilliant.
He's like, I'll go with you as far as you go. Yeah. You're like, all right, okay. Well, we know exactly what's going to happen. So I think this film's is, it has a heart to it. Yeah. It has a beating, compassionate heart to it that is really sweet. while also dealing with some extremely grim subject matter. I mean, like, everyone's dying around this kid. His parents die, and then his grandmother dies like a week or two later. And then his granddad's going to die as well. It's really grim, but they treat it really like there's something really real about the way they treat it sometimes. That is that I found surprising. And I think the performances in this movie are brilliant. I think everybody is great. Everybody's really good. The guy, Mr. Brink, is brilliant. Gramps is fantastic. Nellie's really nice. Even like the doctor, the guy that the doctor brings to like manhandle him to the insane asylum is great. The guy that he shoots him in the gut, that guy's great too, because he's sort of this like street tough kind of guy who's sort of frightened. He plays frightened really well when he pulls the gun on them. That guy's great too. So I think this film surprised me on every level, and I am shocked that I didn't know about it before. Alright, well, here we are in Death's living room, and he's just sort of turned his armchair around, and he's just sort of sitting with his bony hands on his lap, I assume staring at us. I can't see a face inside the dark cowl, but he's pointed it towards us, and he's just sort of looking like he's expecting something. So I'd really like to leave, and I don't know if I want to leave to the ethereal plane or whether we should like try and get back to Earth or how we would achieve that. But either way, John, which one of these movies did you think was the best movie?
Yeah, this is perfectly appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, let's just ignore him, all right? Just ignore him.
Yeah, it's definitely. Right. I'm gonna turn and face the other way.
Yeah, let's just look at each other and don't look at him. All right, you tell me which one of these is the best film.
Well, I mean, it is The Seventh Seal, but also I loved On Borrowed Time.
Yeah,
and they're very very different. Seventh Seal is very much a kind of darker, more serious movie. On Borrowed Time is I'm saying it's lighthearted, but at the same time it's got really dark parts in it. As we said, that opening sequence in On Borrowed Time, with Death kind of making like we jokes and stuff, it does set the tone in that way. That is the tone for the movie, despite all these grim deaths and all these grim situations that happen in it. But I mean, I think it's just the direction and the added kind of film language that is added in Seventh Seal just puts it on that different level. Yeah.
I mean, it's technically brilliant and all that. And it has a lot to say.
Yeah.
If you want to analyze it, and
but it doesn't have someone being crushed by glass.
That is absolutely. It does not have a kid unexpectedly being crushed by a pane of glass out of nowhere in a great special effect, as far as I can tell. And just because I don't know, because I gotta say, I do really, really like Final Destination 2 a lot.
Really? Oh, no.
I do. I like it a lot. And it feels weird for me to sit here and say that it's somehow better than The Seventh Seal.
Well, it's a personal opinion. It's the kind of
like,
thing where... I mean, because I'm on the fence, because as much as I like The Seventh Seal, it's not something that you're going to stick on all the time. You're not going to, like... it's not suitable for every occasion, let's say, but for me it wouldn't be Final Destination 2, but On Borrowed Time I can see myself watching that again very soon.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, The Seventh Seal. Oh, so many film titles. We've got 4 films this week now because we included Final Destination 1 and 2, and it is throwing my head all over the place. But The Seventh Seal it's quiet and it's thoughtful, and it is very imaginative in its way as well. Final Destination 2 is very imaginative, but it is not quiet and it is not thoughtful. But I actually, the thing I love about Final Destination 2 is the imaginative nature of the whole thing. It is just, is this kind of, I've talked about this before about certain slasher series, like say Friday the 13th, where every subsequent sequel is just about how much more ridiculous can we make the deaths in this one than we did the last one. And I feel like Final Destination 2 feels like it should be like the fourth or the fifth one.
Yeah.
Because of how ludicrous they're getting. But it's only the second entry. And they've already dialed it all the way up to the top. And that's, I think, what I love about it, is that it's so absolutely ludicrous from the opening. Like, they set it up where they're giving you these characters, and I guess they're coming off of the first one with like here's the few characters you get to know, and they're the ones that live.
Yeah.
And then get killed. Whereas in this one, they fake you out with like her car full of dickhead friends that they try to get you to know, but then they murder all of them. Yeah. And then it's a bunch of weird...
Oh, they were the worst.
It's a bunch of other weird strangers that you only get to know through the sequence where they all get killed.
Yeah.
You get to know them through that, the drive down the motorway. And then it's just like... It does that so much. It's fake out after fake out after fake out that I really appreciate. And like, it doesn't feel... Because it feels like the fake outs are funny. Mm-hmm. They're not there to annoy and like be... You know, sometimes they'll have a twist in a movie and you'll be like, that's a dumb twist. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Whereas
in this, when you have the twist of, oh, this is how this person died, it's so shocking and out of nowhere that it's always hilarious. Like, there's a point where somebody's head gets cut off by an elevator. And that's absolutely brilliant. It's a great shot of the head sitting there. Or like, there's the pane of glass. There's like 10 different things in that scene that you're shown. It's like they had that scene from the first one of the teacher getting killed.
Yeah.
And they thought, why don't we do this for every single person in this one? Like, there's the guy that like who won the lottery or whatever, and there's like 10 different things in his house that are trying to kill him.
His was very reminiscent of the teacher.
Absolutely, because his is brilliant, because there's like, his house is on fire just like the teacher's house is,
and then what kills him ends up being very mundane.
yeah, there's a gas leak and there's all kinds of stuff, and like the windows won't open and you think the window's gonna fall and crush him while he's trying to escape, and like he's literally like he's standing, there's a point where he's standing in the middle of his flat and he's surrounded by fire, and then he picks up the fire extinguisher and squeezes it and nothing comes out. And then like, yeah, so he makes his way, and then you think, oh, he's gonna die here, and he falls, and then he does this and he does that, and he's on the fire escape, and you think, oh, he's gonna fall off the fire escape and die. And then he's on the fire escape and the ladder won't go down. You're like, oh no, he's gonna fall, and then it goes boom and it goes down, and he lands, and he's like, I lived, and then the ladder just falls and kills him. Like, what the fuck just happened? So I think you can tell by my enthusiasm,
yeah,
that I feel like, even though it irks at me, and even though On Borrowed Time was a wonderful surprise,
yeah,
that that I probably will watch again at some point, but I also definitely will watch Final Destination 2 at some point as well.
See, I think for me the thing that kind of pushes it over is the kind of staying power, and you know, the On Borrowed Time will stick in my brain. I will carry that with me for the rest of my life now. You know, the same with like the Seventh Seal, or Final Destination, maybe not.
Well, Final Destination 2 got the problem is Final Destination got its hooks in me a long time ago, and it's settled there, and it's just like
I think it's about time they rebooted it and just because it doesn't matter. It doesn't like just start from scratch again and go. Yep. It doesn't have to be a flight this time. It could be a boat. It could be...
Have a third film that's just called The Final Destination, because the fourth one was called Final Destination as well, with a "the" in front of it. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. Who cares? They don't need to connect anything to anything. Just have the stupidest thing you can think of happen, and then a series of more stupid things and people dying in unexpected ways. The end. And I will be happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm picking Final Destination 2
Ooh.
for this. The first one I appreciate as well. There's points, again, like you said, the teacher death is hilarious.
Yeah.
Because it's just so stupid, and it goes on and on. And the longer it goes on, the funnier it gets. But every death in the second one is that, and it doesn't. I feel like it doesn't get tedious. For me, every single one is just as entertaining as the last one. So I'm fine with that. And again, and the third one, I like the third one. Fourth one's crap. Fifth one's slightly better, but not great. But who cares? Make more Final Destination movies is my point.
Yep.
I love this film because I'm a dick. But John, which then? So you're picking on Borrowed Time, right?
I think I'll pick on Borrowed Time, yeah, because
it's made a mark on you, has it?
It definitely, you know, it's the one that kind of feeds into my kind of whole Terry Pratchett addiction a bit more. You know, that depiction of death being this nicer kind of like almost compassionate type thing, or character, and just Gramps and Pod, that whole relationship was just brilliant.
Yeah, it's adorable.
Yeah, so I think I part of me wants to pick Seventh Seal because, I mean, it's kind of the obvious choice though. Maybe I don't want to pick it because of that. You
almost feel like you should pick it.
But I mean, if we were talking about the technicalities of the movie and all that, it's going to be the Seventh Seal. But this isn't that. This is just a personal thing.
This is just you and me. This is just you and me being like, which one of these films do you like? You know, and I think it's perfectly legit. I mean, I'm picking Final Destination 2, which is arguably way harder to argue the case for against the Seventh Seal, but I don't care because I think it's great.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We can both be wrong separately and together and argue about which one's more wrong than the other. But which one of these films do you think best sort of helps someone to avoid or deal with the personification of death in a way? Like,
well,
like what's the option here? Are we looking to survive?
Well, see it a bit.
I think we are.
Yeah,
I would like to.
I mean, it kind of gets a wee bit metaphorical at some point because you're not really, you know, Final Destination. You're avoiding kind of death's wee traps, as we Rube Goldberg traps. But he will eventually take you at some point.
Yeah, there's no real getting away.
I mean, even if you avoided all his traps forever, and I don't know if the loopholes ever work, because I can't remember the kind of 4 and 5. I'm pretty sure I've seen them.
Like it worked for like the only film I can really think of. Like, cause I don't know if the loopholes really work for anyone in any of these films, or if they find loopholes. Because like the only time I can think about someone defeating death is again Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, right? Because in the Seventh Seal, it's stalling tactics. You know, he's playing this game. Like theoretically, in the Seventh Seal, he has a deal whereby death will leave him alone.
Yeah. If
he beats him.
See, that's not an option because my chess game is not the best.
Yeah, and on Borrowed Time, his only option seems to be running. Like there is no running out the clock.
No.
It's this sort of like, no one's going to die if he just leaves death in the tree.
Yeah.
And that's a temporary solution. I mean, it could be a permanent solution, but
that's
like
horrible.
That's the dystopian nightmare. You know, I kind of want to see On Borrowed Time in 100 years
on a grander scale.
From then, like here's On Borrowed Time is like, let's say halfway through he makes the decision on Borrowed Time, no, you're never getting down from the tree, and then we flash forward 100 years, and what is the world like? Is it some overpopulated Mad Max hellscape?
Or if he accidentally touches the tree, because then anything that touches the tree dies, that means he would die. So he never is able. I was worried about that.
Yeah. I was worried about that for a huge portion of the movie.
Yeah.
That like if he touches the tree, then there's no one around to tell Death he can get out of the tree, and then Death is locked in that tree forever.
I can imagine that it would somehow come out, and then there would be excursions to that tree just for people to die. So you'd be in this big long queue for a tree just to touch it and go, please release me from this torment. I'm 1,000,000 years old and I just want to die.
Yeah, they'd have to make like having children illegal or something because there wouldn't be enough resources in the world. All right, we are writing our own movie here. So I think maybe it's the Seventh Seal, because it's the only one in which it is floated as a possibility, although it is definitely like he's never intended. But I would like to float that actually maybe it's actually Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
I mean, what I will say, maybe this is too serious. What I will say is, stop trying to cheat death, everyone.
I'm not trying to cheat him.
It's just going to happen. Although he's a cheater in Seventh Seal, so you know what? Yeah, cheat death all you want.
And yeah, in the Seventh Seal, he cheats by pretending to be a monk and getting these hot strats from Antonius in secret.
But as we mentioned earlier, you know, we're all in some way playing a game of chess with death, and you just have to let it ride out. And
but what if it wasn't chess though? Because in Bill and Ted, again, I keep bringing it up. But in Bill and Ted, they get to choose the game. And here, John, see, like back in like 1997, 1998, I was really good at GoldenEye on the N64. Like I was really good at it.
Yeah.
Like it's the only like video game that I can say that when in a multiplayer that I was like nobody could beat me. You know, in my immediate circle of people. You know, I'm sure if I was on the international circuit I probably would have got trounced, but I was really good at GoldenEye. So my theory is this.
Okay. If
Death has an N64,
I might have to pick Odd Job. I wasn't that good at it.
Yeah, I'll allow that. Usually, like Odd Job's off the table because he's too short and you can't properly get shots at him. But I think I'm good enough.
Yeah.
That I can get you. I guess we're against each other now, really, because there's no teams here where I can't play. It's got to be deathmatch. Like.
Oh dear. Okay.
So
as long as we defeat Death, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think his bony fingers are really designed to use analog sticks and push buttons very well. So I think we'll be all right. So I'm gonna just challenge him to a game of GoldenEye. And John, if you want to come along, I don't know if you're. Only one of us can win.
Let's go for it.
All right. Cool. Right. Well, so I guess one of us will be back next week, depending on how this goes. So we are on Twitter. We are at 7 Day Apocalypse. That is at 7 Day Apocalypse. Our email address, if you want to contact us, is filmcast@thisweeksapocalypse.com. That's filmcast@thisweeksapocalypse.com. Quick thank you to our podcast artist, One Wee Day at a Time, on Instagram. Right, John, so let's use our knowledge of video games now to defeat...
Have a good life then, Kevin, I guess.
All right. I don't know. You know what? It's been a long time. Maybe I'm crap at GoldenEye now. Who knows? You've got a good chance. I'm an old man now. I've lost all those fibers in my thumbs. All right. Okay. So 3, 2, 1. Game on!